Today we're reading Acts 10, verses 9 through 18. On the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. He became very hungry, and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance, and saw heaven open, and a certain vessel descending to him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners, and let down to the earth, wherein were all manners of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and the fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, What God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house, and stood before the gate, and called and asked whether Simon, which was surnamed Peter, were lodged there. We saw Cornelius being instructed by God in the last passage, and today we see Peter receiving instruction as well. Each one is a different experience, but each is part of God's bigger plan. We find Peter hungry and ready to eat, but while waiting for food to be prepared, he goes up on the roof to pray. During this time, God gives him a vision. He sees something like a large sheet coming down from the sky. In this sheet are all kinds of tasty animals. Okay, I added the tasty part, but it seemed implied by God's command, and I'm partial to some good protein myself. It tells us there were all manner of four-footed beasts, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls. And then a voice says, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. This may not seem like anything to you and me except a free wild game dinner, but for Peter, this request was abhorrent. These animals were all forbidden by the Jewish dietary laws. He had never eaten any of them and would have never considered such. You see, even though Peter was now past Pentecost and the Holy Spirit had been given, he was still following the ceremonial laws of Judaism. God had given them those laws to distinguish the Jews from the nations around them. But now, God is breaking down those barriers that stood before. The Messiah has come, clearly and certifiably from the lineage of David. And the gospel message, the good news, is now to be for all people, as Jesus has stated in his command before his ascension. What we eat does not play a part in our walk with Christ. I like how J. Vernon McGee put it, eating some certain food may give you indigestion, but it certainly will not change your relationship with the Lord. When Peter objects to eating these unclean animals, the voice tells him, What God has cleansed, that call not thou common. This is repeated 3 times, certainly to emphasize to Peter the seriousness of the message, but I also wonder if it's to remind him of his own failure and how Christ had forgiven him and cleansed him and made him righteous. Peter's still struggling with the vision and what it means for him when the crew sent by Cornelius arrives. The Holy Spirit tells him that the men are there and that he is to believe their story and go with them. Isn't it exciting to see God work? He works through us today as well if we take the time to listen and if we're willing to obey when he talks. Be listening and watching for what God is doing in and through your life today.